a bill becomes a law. Now that, I'm not expecting you to get all that information written down. You probably can't even see it very clearly where you are. But if we were going to describe the bill making process, it's not easy. In fact, it's intended to be kind of difficult. There's certain processes which have to occur in order for a bill to become a law. All right, so let's use the United States federal legislative branch, the legislative branch of the United States. What's that called? Congress. How many houses does Congress have? 2. Which house can a bill start in? Either. With the exception of one type of bill, and that's a bill that deals with taxes. That all tax bills have to start where? Why do you think that is, that all tax bills have to start in the House of Representatives? Because it's based on population. Does California pay more taxes than we do? Yeah, why? They got more people. Okay, so all tax bills have to start in the House. Okay, so let's say that we have a bill, and it's not a tax bill. Let's say we have a bill that says every Tuesday the federal government will provide tacos on the street corner of every main street in America for free. Official, government-sanctioned and subsidized Taco Tuesdays. I think that sounds fantastic. Doesn't that sound great? Me for president. All right, so it gets entered. It goes. So let's say that, hey, we're good. We're citizens, and we want this bill passed, and we want to. So we write it. Can we submit that bill? No, we can't. Who can submit it for us, though? Who? Who could we send it to have them submit it for us? So who could we send it? I want to know their name. Who? Okay, this is we're looking at the federal level. Okay, we're looking at the federal level. So who's our federal House of Representatives representative? No. One more. Carol Miller. We could send it to Carol, and she could submit it on our behalf to the House of Representatives. Or we could send it to. Can the Senate submit bills? Yeah, who could we send it to? Joe Manchin or Shelley Moore Capito, because we have 2 senators that represent us. Okay. Now, because this is a bill that doesn't deal with taxes, either of them could submit it for us. So let's say we send it to the House, and Carol Miller gets up on her little two little feet and begins spouting off and reading our bill aloud, okay? And it gets introduced. She would be the patron of our bill. She's the patron of our bill. All right, so once it gets introduced, it gets put into this thing called a hopper. What's a hopper? You guys ever watch the lottery? Yeah, and it's got all those ping pong balls that bounce around. Yeah, basically. And so they put your bill into like a little, an envelope or something, and they put it in there, and they turn the hopper around. And it's just really based on luck whether your bill gets called out to be read or not. So let's say we get lucky, and our bill gets pulled out of the hopper, and it gets read on the floor of the House. It just simply is read, okay? Once it is read, that's called the introduction. And then it is given a number and a title. Usually, if it starts in the House of Representatives, like our bill is, it's called H.R., House of Representatives, 203, 5, whatever. It's given a name and a title. If it starts in the Senate, it's called SB, Senate Bill. HB or SB is usually what it is. HB, House Bill, SB, Senate Bill. Does that make sense? All right, so ours is starting in the House, so it'll be HB and then whatever number. Okay. Now, our bill is about providing a public service, right? We're going to provide free tacos on the main street of every city in America. So it has to go to a committee. It has to go to a committee to study it. So what kind of committee is going to study our Taco Tuesday bill? Okay, it could go to the Committee on Food and Drugs, because does it have to do with food? Yeah. Any other committees that could potentially list it? Maybe Health and Human Resources? Yeah. All right, so it goes to those committees, or a committee. And in that committee, it is studied. They ask questions of each other. They may call us. Be like, hey, tell us about your bill. We want to know about it. What kind of research have you done? And now we say this committee, it's not just some special group of people. It's House of Representatives members volunteer for these different committees or are appointed. Okay? So they study the bill. And they may say, you know what we like? We like your Taco Tuesday bill, but instead of doing it on Main Street, how about we do it at the busiest interstate exit? We want to see more people have access to the Taco Tuesday. So we want to put it in a place where there's that. So could they make a change to our bill? Yes. They could. Amendments or changes can be made in those committees. Okay. So now if that committee, they can make changes to it. They can just straight out approve it. They can make changes and then approve it. Or they can just be like, Taco Tuesday, that's the dumbest bull I've ever heard in my life. And what happens to your bill? It dies. That's what it's called. And you have to start all over again. Okay? So let's say, hey, Taco Tuesday's awesome. They love it. And so that committee passes it. Say, okay, that committee says, yes, this bill is allowed to live. Then after that, it goes back to the floor of the House. Now, when I say floor of the House, that doesn't mean they throw it on the ground. What does that mean? It goes to the people of the House, the representatives, where they can debate. What does debate mean? Have a discussion that includes all sides of the issue. Okay? So they debate it. All right? After they debate it, they vote on it.
At this time, we need seniors, last name J through M as in Mary. Once again, seniors, last name J through M as in Mary, to report to the gym.
Okay, so the House of Representatives debates it. They talk about it. And then ultimately, after all the debate and discussion, they vote. And in order for our bill to continue on, what do we have to have? Not 2/3. Good guess.
1/3.
Good guess. 50% plus one vote. Not 51%. 50% plus one vote. That's called a simple majority. You have to have a simple majority. So then what happens? It becomes law? No. What happens after it passes in the House? What's the next house called? The Senate. And guess what happens there? The exact same process. It has to go through everything again in the Senate. And the Senate can make changes to it. And if the House doesn't like the changes the Senate made, the bill dies. If the Senate doesn't approve it, it dies. And it has to start all over again. So let's say that they love our Taco Tuesday bill, and it goes to the same committees in the Senate, and it passes, then they debate in the Senate, and it passes there. Then where does it go? It goes to what's called a conference committee, which is a committee that is made up of both members from House and members from the Senate, where they can discuss, debate, resolve any differences that the Senate and the House may have, and then, if they approve it, then it can be sent back to both houses where it can be voted on again. They have to vote on it again. Why? Because there's probably changes made. And if any changes that occur, it has to be voted on again. And if at any point it fails the vote, it does not get the simple majority, what happens to your bill? It dies. So let's say it passes the conference committee, goes back to both houses, the House approves it, the Senate approves it. Then where does it go? It goes to the President of the United States, where the President has to give final approval. Now the President has some options here. The President can say, hey, Taco Tuesday, all right, and sign his or her name on the bill, and it becomes a law. Or the President can be like, Taco Tuesday, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I don't like it. Veto. And what happens to your bill? It does partially, because then it goes back to the House, and the House can vote again on it. And if the House votes and gets 2/3 vote instead of just a simple majority, then it goes to the Senate. And then the Senate can vote, and if they get 2/3 majority, then what happens? It overrides the president's veto, and that bill becomes a law. What happens if they can't get 2/3 vote? It dies, and then it has to start all over again. Pretty tough to make a law, isn't it? Yeah. You wonder why politicians kind of are gruff, because it's difficult to accomplish that. Okay. Questions on the lawmaking process. It's very similar in the state of West Virginia, except it would do House of Delegates to State Senate, and then who would, instead of the president, who would give the final approval or veto of a state law? Huh? The governor. It's the very similar process at the state level, just with different people. The House of Delegates, the State Senate, and then the governor can veto or give final approval. And then they can override the governor's veto as well by a very similar process. Okay, does that make sense? The state also has committees as well, all right? Okay, questions on how a bill becomes law? All right, last little bit here. We are individual people. David is David. Cadence is Cadence. We are all individual persons. Can me, poor little old Mr. Moore from Beckley, West Virginia, can I really make a difference in the government, especially like the federal government? Can I make a difference? Yeah. That is a unique American belief that individuals matter. Individuals can make a difference. All right? Absolutely, individuals can make a difference. What is the most common, easiest, and effective way that one person can make a difference? Voting. You can also campaign for people you want to win. How do you do that? How do you campaign? Like, what are some ways that you can campaign for someone that you want to win? Put up signs. Yes, that's very common. What else? Wear a T-shirt that says "Vote for Pedro." What else? Yeah, make some posts on social media. Can you donate money? Yeah. All of that is campaigning. All of it. Okay, go to rallies, whatever. Participate. Okay? You're just participating. Okay? That is the main way in which individuals can make a difference. All right? Express your opinion. People don't seem to have much problem doing that anymore. Expressing their opinions through Twitter and Facebook and other forms of social media. Okay? Also, you could write letters. Have you guys ever even written a letter and put a stamp on it in your entire life?
Yeah, one time
No.
in third grade.
One time in third grade. Okay. Well, people can write letters and send them to people, and then for 50 cents, the government will take that piece of paper and they'll take it anywhere in America. You can actually go to another human being, look them in the eye and say, will you take this to Alaska for 50 cents? And they'll do it. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. So you can write letters. Joining an interest group is another way that individuals can make a difference. Can anybody think of some examples of popular or unpopular interest groups? Anybody know the largest interest group in the United States? I guarantee you've seen commercials for it if you've ever watched television. You ever heard of the AARP? AARP, you ever heard of it? You don't know what it stands for? It stands for the American Association for Retired People. What do you think? What issues do you think the AARP is interested in? They're an interest group. What issues do you think they want to see proliferated or protected? Social Security. What else? That is the big one. Health insurance. What's health insurance for old people called? Medicare. Medicare. Medicaid is for disabled people. Medicare is for elderly people. Okay? And what the AARP does is you can join the AARP. Like, hey, AARP, here's my $30 a month. And they're going to take that $30 a month and use it to lobby government officials, to hire lawyers, and do things to protect your Social Security and your Medicare. All right? Also, issues like age discrimination in hiring. They're looking out for old people. That's their job. That's their interest group. Are they going to see to it that education is helped? They don't care about education. That's not their interest. In fact, education sometimes is at odds with old people because retired people don't usually have children. They're all grown. So education they're not worried about. So joining an interest group is one of the ways. Interest groups can also depend upon what your job is. You know, if I'm a doctor, I might join the American Medical Association. If I'm a teacher, I might join the NEA. If I'm a gun nut, I might join the National Rifle Association to see that people's Second Amendment privileges are protected. Okay? So interest groups are one way that you can join or that you can participate in government and make a difference. You yourself, individually. All right? And these are some of the emblems, some mottos. I put the Sierra Club up there. You guys know the Sierra Club is a very large organization. Do you know what they do? What the Sierra Club's interested in protecting? The environment. It's an environmentalist club. Okay? But, interest groups, how can an interest group really influence laws? Like we say, yeah, we're individuals, but we're going to be a part of this interest group. How can an interest group influence laws? How can they make a difference? Well, they can identify issues. They can identify issues. Have you ever heard of an organization called Greenpeace? Greenpeace? Nobody? Greenpeace, have you ever seen like a movie where there's people in a boat and they're like chasing like a whaling ship and they're like throwing stuff at the whalers and trying to prevent them from whaling? One of those boats noticed that off the coast of Japan, there were some Japanese whaling ships that were taking way too many whales, way too many. And they told on them, and they identified that issue, it got national and global attention, and now the Japanese whaling is extremely regulated by the Japanese government. So they made a difference just by identifying the issue. Does that make sense? All right. Another way that interest groups can influence policy is they make massive political contributions. Massive. So you join the interest group, and the way in which you join the interest group is you pay money. That interest group will take your money, and they will, in some cases, donate it to certain candidates they'll donate it to certain candidates whose political ideologies align with their own, in hopes that they win, so that they will proliferate their ideas. Third way that interest groups help is they lobby. What does the word lobby mean? Is that a cool place in the hotel you hang out? What does it mean to lobby? Are you guys good at schmoozing? Schmoozing? You guys know what schmoozing is? Like smooth talking? Speaking persuasively? You guys good at that? Lobbyists make a lot of money doing what they do. They all live in Washington. And what they do is they get access to senators and House of Representatives members and talk to them persuasively about how they should vote on upcoming bills. And usually, depending upon what the interest group is, they're going to talk to them about their own particular beliefs. So, lobbying public officials is a way in which convincing senators and House of Representatives members to think a certain way. And lobbyists are hired by interest groups. They're paid by the interest group to represent the entire group's interest. There are lobbyists all over Washington. There's lobbyists in Washington that represent about any cause you can imagine. Like, there's lobbyists that are like, yay, go cigarettes. Cigarettes are awesome. We don't want any regulation on them. And they go and they talk to senators and House of Representative members to try to make sure that those things happen. Okay? Energy is a big lobbying campaign because automakers and like oil companies in particular, they don't want to see a bunch of electric cars. What do they want to see? Gas guzzlers, because that hurts their profits if everybody drives an electric car. So they hire lobbyists to go in and be like, there's a bill coming up that will incentivize people to buy electric cars and give them cash, like a stimulus. There's not. But if there were, they would be like, hey, that's bad. That's bad for America. And try to convince the senators and House of Representative members to vote against it. Okay. Questions on this? Those of you guys that just came back after getting your pictures taken, fortunately for you, I have recorded it, and it will be on YouTube within the minute.